This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up and welcome to Hot Take Reactions, where I react to your hot takes of the week going through the comment section of my videos. So this day, I'm going to start this day. I'm not Edge. On this video, I'm going to start with Martin Emerson is one of the best defensive backs in football. Brad Phillips says, what about Hopkins' kick? A 55-yarder and 13-mile-per-hour winner. If he misses it, the Jags taking this out in OT in the last drive. Now, I don't know if it's that deep, but I did forget to put Dustin Hopkins in the winner category for my winners and losers video. So my bad, Dustin. I have this bad habit of only thinking about offense and defense when I do those videos. Got to start incorporating special teams, especially as special teams has been, because also Corey Bojorquez was balling in this game as well. Now, as far as like if he misses that field goal, I really don't know if the Jags take you to overtime, because the Browns' strategy defensively would have been very different, right? Like they played a let them score strategy on that last drive for Jacksonville because they really could care less if Jacksonville scored on that drive. If Jacksonville scored on that drive, they were still going to be down 3, and it would have required the Browns to miss an onside kick in order to lose that game, especially after the 2-minute warning. It was a completely different defensive strategy. They were allowing for those points to be scored as long as you were sacrificing time on the clock. Teams will be okay with that in that situation if all they have to do to ensure victory is catch an onside kick, rather than being really aggressive defensively and accidentally allowing for like a big play to happen, similar to what happened against the Jets last year. So I think that probably isn't true, but that kick is still a big deal because it put the game away. It allowed you to play a defensive strategy. It was like, all right, score, I don't care. Just take a little while to do it, because it just allowed you to salt away the game a little bit easier instead of having to worry about getting a true defensive stop. So it made your life a little bit easier for sure. Not a little bit easier for sure if you're the Cleveland Browns. Michael says, think about this. The Browns have beaten 2 of the #1 seeds in the NFL. The Browns have beaten 6 teams with a winning record. The Browns have the 3rd best record in the AFC. The Browns have the same record as the Chiefs with QB4. It's impressive, right? It's impressive. And I remember when the Browns won 11-5, the big criticism of that was that the Browns were paper tigers, right? That they haven't beaten anybody that's good, and whenever they do, they didn't show up and all this stuff, and they didn't beat Pittsburgh. But truth is, you are what your record is, and the Browns' record is not only impressive given what they've gone through, it's impressive just because of what they've done to get to that record. Like, even if Deshaun Watson were healthy, like everybody was healthy, and you were still 8-5, I think that there's a world where people will be like, some people will be disappointed, but I think a lot of people will be like, hey man, look at what those 8 wins entailed. So yeah, it's an impressive year. And again, if we get to 10 wins with this roster being as decimated as it is, I'm going to put it down as one of the more impressive seasons that we've seen from a football team in modern NFL history. And it's going to be the most impressive Browns season since reactivation, bar none. Thank you for the comment though, Mike. Liberty Outdoor Adventures. This is somebody who's been on the channel for a minute. When JOK reads a play, he is right in the backfield so fast, it's insane. Yeah, his spot quickness is just insane. It's some of the most insane stuff you'll ever see. Mitt says it's crazy how good AB is in drafting defensive backs. Cam Mitchell seems like such a steal. Martin Emerson is the 2nd best corner in his draft class. Oh, hold on. Wait. Might be 3rd. I believe he was in the same draft class as Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley. Now, after that, you could throw Martin Emerson in there, but let's not get crazy. Greg is solid AF. Grant is a Pro Bowl safety. And then you also have guys like Hickman Bell, very good UDFAs too. Crazy scouting there. I think it says a lot about the infrastructure of the secondary that you've been able to plug and play a lot of these defensive backs. Even when it was Joe Woods, I felt like you had that good structure in that secondary. So when you do draft a Greg Newsome, you're able to plug him in. When you do draft a Martin Emerson, you're able to plug him in. When you do draft Grant Delpit, you're able to plug him in. And now you're at a point to where you have a defined defensive ideology that everybody has embraced. So it's just so much easier to plug guys in into different spots because you know where to put them. Again, this is why continuity is important. If you know who you have on the roster, you know your personnel, you know what can fit around your personnel or what can replace spots in your personnel, and it's easier to just get these pieces in the right place. So that's just a fantastic job by Andrew Berry. Breaking Dawand Jones is out for the year. Grant Delpit. This is the first injury video I made this week. There were multiple. Shout out to Basher, a member here, who says, good stuff, Q. This has been a weird season with all of these injuries, and it's just insane. And to be 8-5 from what we've been through is amazing. I didn't want to sign Flacco. I wanted DTR to get the reps for the rest of the season to make sure he's the number 2 QB. I got to admit, he's looked good so far, and I'm always a fan of this team, how proud they are playing through all these injuries. And yeah, man, like, hey, at this point, the Browns have had so many injuries. You just got to take any surprise with a thumbs up, right? You know, a lot of people want to see what DTR could do because a lot of people are curious about the potential of DTR. But if Joe Flacco's going to step in and play like 2012, then hey, man, you got to roll with it, right? And that's a much better spot to be in. And I think of all the injury spots, I think you're very fortunate at quarterback right now to have Joe Flacco in there and somebody that you have belief in their potential like DTR in case something happens to Joe Flacco. Like, I do feel pretty fine about that quarterback situation, that it's not going to be a disaster. Now, everything else around it has to hold up, but that's a really good spot to be in, despite the fact that you've taken all these injuries. Rye Guy says, can we talk about Nick Harris stepping up and earning his spot on the roster? It looked like he did a great job filling in at center when Ethan Posick went down. This whole team has been stepping up. Our roster has never felt so deep. Yeah, next man up. It's not something that the 2014 Browns could do, right? Like, it wasn't. If injuries happened to that team at the highest level, it was a wrap. And that's kind of what happened to that 2014 Browns team, is that they lost a couple starters and then everything went to hell and high water, or whatever the saying is. And that's something that doesn't happen with this team, because the 2014 team was kind of a flash in the pan. This 2023 team is just a result of years and years of player development. Like, Nick Harris is a great example of this. But I also think another good example of this is James Hudson. Another good example of this is Jerome Ford. Another good example of this is Cedric Tillman. There's a ton of good examples of this up and down the roster. Alex Wright is somebody who's going to have to step up in the absence of a couple people, right? And what I mean by that is, okay, you have your starting center go down. It's okay. We have this dude that we drafted that we feel okay about that can step in, and Nick Harris. So we're fine. Dawand Jones goes out, bummer, because he's a special player. But, hey, man, we can mitigate the damage because we could throw James Hudson in there, a guy who's been on this team for a little while and knows how to play the position, has stepped up in that spot before and has been fine. We could just throw him in there to play some tackle. We're going to be all right. We have so many spots like this on this team. And again, this goes to show you, not only are you drafting well, but you have a good development plan. And that development plan is putting players in the right places. And the places that those players are being put in are positions of success. This is something that the Browns have not had. Again, I say this all the time. If you ever wonder why Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, despite consistently having less top 50 draft picks than the Cleveland Browns, were always able to outpace the Cleveland Browns in terms of talent until recently. This is why. Because those draft picks don't mean as much when you can't develop anybody. But when you can develop somebody, then all of a sudden you don't need top 50 draft picks to get good players because you're not relying on luck. You're relying on structure. See, that's why you can trade 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson and still have Pro Bowl level young talent come in the absence of those first-round picks, because you can develop talent now. You don't have to rely on the first round to get that talent, because when you're drafting in the first round, you're relying on basically hey man, the odds are in my favor. When you need multiple top 5 draft picks in order to get right for a draft class, it's because you can't develop anybody, and you need prospects so talented that they can overcome poor development. But if you are a good spot for development, you all of a sudden don't need to be rushing out there to get the top 2 guys in the draft class in order to put together a good team. Now, for certain star players, you're not developing a Myles Garrett, sure, but you developing all the pieces that you put around Myles Garrett. So, I think that's a big part of being able to play next man up. The Browns have multiple guys in multiple spots where, hey, somebody went down, a big starter went down, but this guy we've been developing for the last couple of years is here. Like DTR, he's going to factor into this at some point, maybe this year, next year, the year after that. But at some point, we're going to be very happy that we developed DTR to step in a moment like this, because I don't think the Deshaun Watson injury stuff's just going to magically go away. There's no sign that it is. He's only getting older. He hasn't really shown a tendency to protect himself. Now, again, his injuries were pretty freak injuries, but he's probably going to get nicked up here and there. I'm not saying he's going to miss another season, but he's probably going to get nicked up here and there. And then DTR is going to have to step in, and we're going to be pretty happy that we developed DTR. Might not be this year. And hell, you can even argue that it was this year, right? Because he came in and won you a game not on the road, but against Pittsburgh. So I say all that to say, the way they go about this is just proof evidence that this is a different franchise than what we had before. And the development that they've been able to do along this roster, it is just the proof. Yes, the Browns are a good organization. Great segue into this video's comments. This was a video talking about how the Browns are what people thought Pittsburgh was, or what people thought that this organization was. They're a good organization. Wilker says, I'd argue it started with Sachi Brown making a few picks, but